far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Fireside Chat. Today we are going to be talking to three amazing women about the idea of how we can stay safe and protect ourselves online, consumer education, and that's the topic for today. So my name is Janelle Scarrett, and I am a proud member of the 100 ABC Women since the 2018 season. So this is a year of renewal, 7 years in. And so I am really pleased to be the one here today to welcome you and to guide you through the conversation on this topic. And so without further ado, I'll introduce our three panelists. So Farzia Khan is an award winning cybersecurity leader and advocate for digital literacy. At TD, she leads enterprise wide initiatives focused on cyber upskilling, awareness, and building a strong culture of cyber resiliency. Her work empowers thousands of employees and millions of customers to stay safe in an increasingly digital world. And then next we have Ola Onyaboha. Did I pronounce that correctly? You'll have to help me out with that. It was good. Okay. Is a licensed Canadian immigration consultant and the founder of Seventh Laurel Immigration Consulting Incorporated. She is a dynamic entrepreneur and community impact leader with over 18 years of experience across Canada and West Africa. Ola specializes in immigration consulting, customer experience management, deal facilitation, IT solutions, sales, and startup consulting for newcomer women and youth, leveraging her versatile communication and strategic skills. With more than 5 years at a top tier global IT corporation, she remains committed to driving results and creating meaningful social and business impact. Welcome, Ola.
Thank you.
And then we have Karine Cohen Sanchez. She's a PhD candidate in social sciences at the University of Ottawa, specializing in experiential education, anti racism, and the intersection of race, identity, and social power. As an activist scholar, she has co founded the Black Mentorship Program and the Student Anti Racism Association, and currently serves as co chair of SSARC's advisory committee to address anti Black racism. Her impactful contributions have earned her multiple national honors, including the 2023 President's Award for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So, welcome, Kareem.
Thank you.
Okay, great to have you all here. And I know that we're dealing with how to protect ourselves from being scammed and ripped off online. And this is something that I know is very topical. In fact, I was listening to a CBC radio show just within the last 2 days talking about the deep fake and identity theft and the rise of AI and all of those things. And they seem very, very scary concepts. But I have some questions that I'm going to throw out to each of you. And then I'm hoping we can have a very interesting conversation about this topic. So I'll start with you, Farzia. As the author of a children's book on cyber safety, how can parents protect kids in today's hyper-connected world where online learning, gaming, and social media are part of our daily lives? From threats like scams, cyberbullying, and privacy risks, while encouraging safe exploration and digital confidence in our children. What do you suggest that we do on that?
Thank you so much for asking that important question, Janelle. And I'll start by saying that, the reason I wrote this book is because I wanted to help children and their parents understand that cybersecurity isn't just a technical issue, it's a life skill. In today's world, kids are growing up online. There's no denying that. They're learning, gaming, socializing on the internet, and that comes with incredible opportunities, but also very real risks like scams, cyberbullying, and privacy violations, all of that stuff. I think the most powerful thing parents can do is stay engaged, not in a controlling way, but in a curious and supportive one. Like ask questions, play the games they play, learn the platforms they use. This opens up the door for ongoing dialogue and trust. Second, I'll say is that, it's very important to help kids build digital resilience early on. Teach them how to spot a suspicious message, why it's important not to share personal details, even something that seems harmless, like your school name or a vacation photo, and what to do if someone makes them feel uncomfortable online. I'll also emphasize that it's important not to overlook the emotional side of things, explore things like peer pressure and online bullying, because these moments can deeply affect a child's confidence. And I think that kids need to know that their worth isn't tied to likes, comments, or follower accounts. And because a lot of times, scammers, they prey on these kind of, children who are vulnerable, who want to, want to be like, who want to get that validation from others. And they often make them feel validated. So I think, but finally, I also want to emphasize that, we also have to make internet a space for safe exploration. So it's important for parents to use tools like, parental controls and kid-safe browsers, all of that stuff, which will give them opportunities to create, learn, and play online in empowering ways. Because I think the goal isn't to really scare them away from the internet. It is to raise cyber smart kids who are confident, capable, and cautious. I'll end by saying that, we can't click for them, but we can help them click wisely.
So, it raises a question as a parent myself. I grew up when Commodore 64 was just introduced, and so everything was just dots and black screens, and then we went into WYSIWYG. Do you know what I'm talking about there? What you see is what you get, and now it's real images, and so I think the threat is very real, and because you can't tell the difference between something that's computer generated and something that is real. But you said a couple of things about not sharing personal details. I think that's really important. But something you said, teaching your child what to do if they feel uncomfortable online. What should we be telling the children? I wouldn't even know where to begin to say, turn it off, come to me. And if they came to me, I wouldn't know what to do to make it safer, or to take away that discomfort. So do you have any suggestions about exactly what you would tell your child to do?
Absolutely. I'll say that, I think the biggest challenge, because I, spend a lot of time with, parents who have younger children. And I think the biggest problem we're seeing is that oftentimes kids don't even feel comfortable to come to their parents and share, that, hey, I'm experiencing something online, whether that's even bullying, any form of bullying, whether that is. So I think it starts with just building that trust, right? And I think once, they're able to establish that trust, like being able to go to whoever their, grown-up adult in their life is that they trust, and sharing that, I feel like, they can most likely offer them, the right advice. Now, let's say if you did fall victim to kind of, a scam, there are different things you can do, right? Like changing your credentials, online credentials, making sure that you're protecting your assets. Let's say if you did give, your sensitive information to somebody, what can you do about it? If it's a stranger online that you are, currently interacting with, to cut off those ties, right? And again, I feel like when you have that right adult in your life, they can help you navigate those conversations, properly. Oftentimes there might be, a need for additional therapies and things like that. But if you have been a fallen victim, then, the best thing to do is, inform and report to the police, and even like, anti-fraud Canadian Center. So there are a lot of, I would say, channels available online that can provide you this kind of support. But I think it all begins with just, opening up and being comfortable to share. And then I feel like, for the parents, for example, doing that right kind of research, what is it that I need to do? If you feel like, your child is being, cyberbullied, or, they were kind of tricked into giving sensitive information, I'll say do not be afraid to, contact, the police, your bank, if you feel like your information has been compromised, and, contacting, like I said, anti-fraud center and things like that, that can provide you with the right, tools and resources. And like I said, if you really don't know who to approach, then, again, if you're calling your local authorities, most likely they'll be able to guide you. And I think the next step would obviously be, telling the children's guidance counselors and the teachers and things like that.
Okay, but I think it's really great advice that you gave, that you teach them, just like any other danger, to come to you with that information. And one thing that strikes me, I don't know if the other panelists have the same thought or experience, but it's that sometimes the kids feel as though they know more about the technology than you do, so they may not feel that they're going to get help if they come to mom or dad, right? So any thoughts about what Farzia has shared from the other panelists? Okay. No?
Well,
Okay.
I could speak to that briefly as a mom of kids at different stages in their lifestyle, where negotiation and constant reminder that, you can always come to us is is something that they also feel like, well, technology-wise, my parent may not know everything we do. So there seems to be a bit of pushback. But I think that's where we begin to see some organizations that are having sessions for the youth. We see, especially for people like us, people of color, where we often see that imbalance around access to information and empowerment for our Black youth. And a lot of Black organizations are stepping up to educate the youth. So here comes that leveler, like a bridge between, youth not wanting to listen to the parent and also leveraging on resources with the youth organizations. So I feel like it's good to put this out there that the Black organizations. And one good thing with TD that Pfizer works for is that they have a lot of affiliations and support for majority of, diverse organizations. Let me not use the word Black. So this is another area to continue to just drive home the points and get people to understand that something exists. If you don't want to talk to mom, if you don't want to talk to dad, there are organizations where you can share with your peers and their instructors. Really. So, yeah.
True, and I think you also said they can get some advice online. It's actually one of my brothers. I have six brothers, by the way, and one of them taught me that if you don't know it, go onto YouTube and ask the question, and you'll get the answer. And that goes for fixing your car, and apparently it does go for parenting and information about cybersecurity. So thank you for those tips, Farzia. So I'd like to move on to a question for you, Ola. So, my question for you is, how can immigrants, refugees, and international students protect themselves from scams and financial traps while navigating unfamiliar systems in a new country, especially when they are actively seeking housing, work, immigration help, or trying to start a business? Can you lead us through that?
Thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity. So I would like to have this conversation around lived experience because this is my 11th year in Canada, and my journey started as an international student. And I have certain demography of what a typical organization who wants to sell some products or services to me looks like. So not just as an international student, I'm a mom of two toddlers. And yes, I would need daycare services. I would need auto. So when you come into this system, you're the first thing you want to do is to get a social insurance number. The other thing you want to do is to, get your names on bills, telephones, and all of that. And while you're doing that also, we also know that there are certain things that people don't even pay attention to. When you're signing some of these contracts, there is a part that puts like a disclaimer where your information could be shared by third-party organizations, ABC. Well, we came from a culture, some of us immigrants and refugees, I just want to get this done. Let me just sign and move on, not knowing that your phone number is actually going on maybe yellow pages or something where people could potentially, all these salespeople could potentially pick your numbers and they can call you. We also find an instance where some people in the past had used the previous number that you're actually getting as your own first numbers. That could also potentially lead you to certain organizations that has put that number on a calling list or a contact list. One thing I would start off by saying is you don't have to agree to some of these organizations calling you. There is what we call do not call lists. You can also read through the terms to ensure that any information you want is something that you signed up for yourself. And you might say, oh, what if I sign up for this and I'm still getting some funny messages? We're going to come to that. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I've worked with immigrants women along the lines. I myself, there was a time I was a victim of one organization, an IT organization, wherein I was told the call came telling me that my computer is exposed to certain risk. This was in 2014 when I was still pretty much new, and it was a different terrain for me. I recall clicking on that link, and the rest they say is an history of breach and all of that. So from there, I learned sadly because I literally lost all my schoolwork during that time, and I lost certain personal information that as well as also extended to affecting my husband, who happens to be in Nigeria as at that time. So learning from that actually taught me to be extra careful, and it made me to take the knowledge of cybersecurity seriously. And that was why moving on into the first industry that I worked with, TD, it was one of those things that I also, I could relate to the training. And when I moved on to one of the top IT company as well, it started becoming a second nature to me to really take the issue of phishing and also understand the pattern. Sometimes you get to listen to a call and there is this sense of urgency. So I've always been educating the immigrant to say, hey, if a call is actually too good to be true, or it has this sense of urgency that doesn't even make you think, you need to just take a deep breath and tell the person, is it okay if we have this call again? And you would always see the pattern. The call either drops off or, they keep on pushing until you say, you know what, I have to go. You need to learn to know when to go. And one of the things also that causes some people to fall into this scenario is the quest and the need to get rich quick or to just get a solution quick. So we also would look at also some women who also falls into what we call arranged marriage under immigration. When you talk about spousal sponsorship and all of common law partners and all of that, some people also oftentimes due to the vulnerability, the fact that they come into the country under certain rules and which has seen them looking in front of them like maybe a scenario where they're faced with departure order and all of that, and somebody's telling them, you know what, you can even get somebody to marry you, and it becomes a scenario of maybe somebody getting scammed. And then we also see rental scams. There was an instance that I've actually worked with an international student to face the rental tribunal because this student who came from a tropic region was made to say yes over a phone call conversation to a landlord who understood that there exists a lacuna in the rental tribunal act of that province. And once this person signed, the basement that was meant to be fixed, the window and some of the loopholes, they didn't fix that, and the woman was made to go in to rent that space. She couldn't live in there for 1 hour. Eventually, she lost her down payment and she lost some other things because the landlord said you said yes over the phone. So these are the kind of things that I try with at least within the scope of what my certified license as an immigration license actually supports what I can do to educate, because hey, I have been through it. It's not funny. And when you look at the amount of money that immigrants and the amount of money and the effort and the sacrifices that immigrants and refugees actually makes here, the least we can do is to educate them. And it is on this note that I come here today to talk about what it is and what we can do and what are the signs to look out for. So one of the last thing I will talk about on immigration is that we have seen a lot of cases in the past. Even the government of Canada is also talking a lot about some of the international students coming in to wanting to study. And when they come in, they change their ways to becoming refugees, or they don't even go to class compliance and all of that. This is not because they wanted to do that. This is because even before they leave their country of origin, you've seen certain agents who have literally told them, you know what, you can do this. They eventually get a lot of money from them, educating them on the path which they want to go. I'll say on this call, I'm happy that it's recorded for people to listen. If you have somebody that is promising you to say, hey, you can come to Canada through this route and you stay permanently, you need to read the fine print. You need to go on the Government of Canada website to be sure that this is it. And if somebody is telling you that, ask them, do you have a license to practice or educate me on this? If they say yes, let them give you their numbers. They should belong to what we call a College of Immigration Consultant, or somebody that is called a paralegal, or legally authorized to practice in Ontario, or a law practitioner, and they should have a number. So please protect yourself. Make sure there are contracts when you're about to sign your finalist before you say yes. Pause, verify, and be sure you are putting in your red seal, because once you do that, there's no going back, and all you want to do is to save yourself than to be sorry.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that last part a little bit more, very, very slowly, to make sure that people can get it. I tried writing it down, so I think I've got that. You ask for a license. They should be a paralegal, the College of Immigration Consultants, and they should have a number. And so then a question is, did I get all of that right?
Yes, so there are three representatives that the government of Canada has
Okay.
approved to represent any potential applicant. Either you want to study, you want to come to Canada as a permanent resident, you want to work, you want to invest, you want to do anything in Canada. Make sure this person belongs to either of these three bodies. The legal, the lawyers, that are, authorized in Canada, they must have their own number. Ask for that number or tell them to share with you their directory where you can search them out. For myself, as an immigration consultant and a member in good standing with the College of Immigration and Consultants of Canada, my number starts with what we call an R, and my number is R708702. You can look me up under the college. Sometimes some people also have some issues or disciplinary actions. You'll be able to see that there. And then the third layer is the paralegals or somebody that is licensed under the Law Society of Ontario. So those are the three people. And we are called authorized representative, either paid or not paid. You must be able to vet those people. Same thing in other organizations. Let's take a step away from immigration. We look at some people that are selling financial solutions, investment, and all of that. They also belong to certain colleges. I remember when I was an insurance advisor with Toronto Dominion Insurance, the goal was for us to, first of all, go through some vettings and scrutiny. You have to pass the exams, you have to remain certified, and you need to continue to renew your license. So before you can practice or sell insurance to me, I want to make sure that you are authorized to do so. Because when you're authorized to do so, there is a basis to take you up when you advise me wrongly through organizations like the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada.
Okay, wonderful. And so you answered the other question that was on my mind, is that once you get the number, what do you do with it? Because, I'm thinking if people can fake their identity, they can give you a fake number, right? But you can go into the college directory, the directory of lawyers, and you can check those numbers to make sure that they are bona fide. And would there be a profile about you? You were saying that if there would be a record of your performance, I guess, as a licensed practitioner, that if you were under investigation for something, or actually not just being under investigation, but if you had done something, then it would be on that record that they should be concerned about. Is that all correct?
Very well correct, because even our college exists to protect the consumers, not even us. And the good thing is, like, every year we pay to be a member of that organization. And that is why we must follow every step they have put in place. And if there is any reason for the public, the client, to have a bit of, not to appreciate the effort that has been put in, the person has a legal recourse. Everything is stated in the retainership. So the contact number, the details, and everything is there. So what that does is it gives the client or even the prospective candidates that next layer of assurance and security that you're dealing with the right people. And beyond even my practice, it is also obtainable in certain regulated industries. When you see in Canada, people selling services and all of that. What I would recommend is for people to learn to read their service agreement, right?
Yeah.
That helps us to know what you're putting your signature on, what records do you have, question it. I've also seen an instance where some people will send a retainership to you. Their terms of payment also seems to be an element of fraud attached to it. They want to tell you this is the extent to which we can go at a time T. And when the work gets, intense, they begin to say, oh, this is what you sign. This is what you sign. The terms were not clearly stated to the client. So what I tell people and what I always do, the first thing when I get a statement of a retainership, I try to understand what's the statement of work look like. What are, like, how long does this billing covers for every of the term? Is this a project that is per milestone? Or because we've seen a lot of instances where vulnerable people that do not understand things get swayed in the direction of, you signed it, then you have to abide by it.
Right. Yeah. And it's so true. I can think of a situation where I just went to rent a car, and there was pressure that you feel, and I guess consumers sometimes feel that if you're in a lineup and there are people waiting behind you and they give you this long agreement, and You just read the first page, you say, okay, I'm sure, I guess what's in there. And I'm protected by the laws, but maybe you're not, because so you should really read the finer print of the. Thank you for that great advice. I think it's very practical, sensible advice that people would agree to. But I know in the moment sometimes you're like, I don't know if I have the time to sit and read. Oh, you actually sometimes you feel as though the person in front of you is worthy of your trust. And so you don't want to second guess and question them by reading through because they've just explained it to you, right? But I'm taking note that really they're not there to protect you. They're there perhaps to make a sale, right? So you need to be the one to protect yourself. I got the thumbs up from Ola, so that's that. I'm taking a lot from what you're saying because I think it probably would have saved me a lot of stress in my journey as a consumer to have had this particular conversation before then. Do any of the other panelists want to add anything to what Ola has said, or you giving her the thumbs up as well? That was excellent. Okay. And so I'm going to move on to Karina Cohen Sanchez and hopefully soon Dr. Karina Cohen Sanchez. How long till you complete your PhD?
It's completed. I'm just doing the defense. Yeah.
Oh, you're doing the
Yeah.
fence.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm putting good vibes on that. So, the question I'm going to ask for you is about your experience organizing and advocating in community. And what advice do you have for individuals to protect themselves from financial scams, particularly those that target marginalized communities?
So the financial scams is not just about individual awareness, it's about building community as well. So I'll answer this in technical aspect and I'll answer it vis-a-vis lived experiences. So there's two prongs to answering this question. The first is to verify the source. And I think that was mentioned by the two panelists in advance, always double check the legitimacy of the source that's offering the financial offers to you. Scammers often pose themselves as trusted institutions, knowing that this builds immediate trust. So it's understanding that what's presented is not necessarily a trusted institution or individual. We have to do our own independently check. Sharing knowledge within your community. This is the most powerful tool, I would say. In my experience, marginalized communities are often targeted because of the systematic barriers to financial education and resources. So by talking openly about the scams and sharing them, what we've learned, what we can empower each other, not keeping it to ourselves out of shame or out of guilt because we got scammed. Like if it happened to you, just talk about it openly to your other communities. This builds community resilience among us. Use a secured form of payment. So be aware of individuals pressuring you to use insecure methods of payments like wire transferred, prepaid gift cards, anything that's untraceable. These are red flags because they're designed to be hard to trace back and you can't get your money back in cases like that. I would also say leverage community resources. Many grassroots organizations and community centers often offer financial literacy workshops. They're all around and they're free or at a very low cost. That provides practical tools for protecting your money. So the information is out there. It's just how do you get it? One recent workshop that I saw was from the Canadian Black Women. So I'll put their link there. They just did a workshop about literacy for Black women. So supporting this organization is not only building community network, but it's also providing you with the tools and resources to know exactly where you should invest your money. And you're reinvesting in your communities as well. And report and support each other. I know another panelist mentioned about reporting to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. That's definitely a point of departure. If you have any questions, you could easily go there and do some research on your own. Sharing your experiences with others to not repeat the cycle of victimization. And I'm going to switch the conversation a bit because the question was how to protect ourselves from financial scams. I think one thing that nobody and rarely people do talk about is the fact that when we set our when we offer services, we have to know our worth. And when we accept any kind of monetary value, we have scammed ourselves of what we can potentially be in the exchange process in which we call capitalism here. People don't often talk about that, but we have to know our worth in the process of what we're offering for services. So do not accept anything just because you're just desperate to be out there, or you just want to be you want something to be, you want your association, or you want your committees, or you want your work to be known. When you're doing that, yeah, you
Mhm.
want exposure, you want all of these aspects, and I'm all for it. I've done many organizations. I've done one organization. I have my independent consultant that I just launched. I also did many kind of panel discussions, any kind of activities like that, but you have to know your worth in the process, because when you accept anything that's provided to you, you've scammed yourself. That's a financial scam. And unfortunately, this happens very often in women of color,
Yeah.
specifically Black women,
Mhm.
because we don't have the same resources and the respect that other communities do. And that's the reality, has been documented. So what happens is that when we talk about situations that is not applicable or palatable for the larger population, we're undermined in our
Mhm.
level of competency and on our level of deliverance. That
Mhm.
we have to make ourselves loud, and not loud only vocally, loud in spaces, the space in which we occupied, how we present the information that we're delivering. Don't scam yourself of your worth. And unfortunately, they have decided budgetary ways that they will give a whole lot of money for climate situations, anything to do with different kind of animals advocacy. But when it comes to anti-Black racism, or anything that talks about uplifting a specific community, and I'm speaking from Black community because that's where I have identified myself from, the funding is so low. And it's always, I don't have money, our budget is constrained. But if I was talking about climate change, the money would be there.
Mhm. Yep.
So it's about setting your standards. It's about understanding your worth through this process of financial scams. Because accepting what's provided to you is a form of financial scam. You have deprived yourself of the value in which you're worth.
Oh.
And it doesn't mean that your value is measured through monetary gain. What that means is that you have to be in the field of competition that's out there. So if you're offering this service and other people from different faculties or different services or different institutions are offering these services, you're worth that. Your
Mhm.
information and your knowledge is worth and is comparable to as much as other people. Whether we're talking about two different subjects, we're still delivering information and knowledge mobilization. It's understanding that process as well.
I'm so glad that you sort of bridged, and you have a bridge behind you. I'm just noticing that you just bridged the conversation from just simply talking about um, IT and that kind of, to when we fall prey to other forms of scams against us. And it really brought to mind a specific situation that I'm aware of, where and I'll just say that in the workplace sometimes this can happen. I am aware of so many Black women that tell the story of when basically things got opened up in their organization, they found that they were carrying a higher workload, a much higher workload than their white female counterparts.
It's
And
a financial scam. This
it's
is you're
that kind of
financially
scam.
scamming
So
me.
they're getting more for you.
Mm-hmm.
And in a case that is very close to me, but I just won't say exactly who it is because I don't want to reveal. But for many, many years, working, there was I'll tell you a short story. So this was a company that is in the media industry. And this employee had been working there for over 20 years. And at the time, um, they were doing scheduling for the people who go on camera to do the news and that sort of stuff. And they were dealing with a load of about 70 something people that they were scheduling. The company went on strike. And when that person refused to cross the picket line, they brought in other workers to do the work to schedule the people. So when the strike was over and they returned, that's when the truth was revealed that the other two people who had been working alongside this woman, this Black woman in the office, had been doing 25 to 30 people on their schedules. They were given a raise after the strike, and that the Black woman found out through that raise situation as well that all along when she was doing 70 something and they were doing 25 to 30, they were making more than her as well. Went to human resources to say, what's up with this? And human resources was like, well, there's no money in the budget to pay you more.
Of course.
And that has to be approved by so and so. We can't just do that here in HR. So really, we have been, I mean, becoming aware of what we've been scammed out of through these various ways, and it is anti-Black racism to call it, to call it its name. So thank you for bridging that gap and raising it. But there is something that you said that I also wanted to hone in on, and that was about knowing our worth.
Mm-hmm.
And as a person who does retreats for women and talking to women about that whole idea of how we value ourselves, I think it's something that we struggle with. And I was made to understand that 65%, I think it is, of the people that are scammed in these cyber communities and so on are women. So it's happening to women more often than others. And I wonder if the panelists want to chime in on this conversation as to what do you think are the vulnerabilities that we're facing as women, as Black women, yes, but as women in general. That, and why do you think that stat exists?
I'll just add one more thing before we say the one problem with women is that we don't negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the number one issue, is that we will accept what's offered until we learn to negotiate, and that is linked to your knowing your worth. And when I mean worth, and again, I'm not talking about monetary gain, I'm talking about the knowledge in which you acquire through lived academic, through various forms, is worth something. This is the system in which we live in. And I'll give a very quick example, and people can, I was contacted, and I'm contacted many times for information and things that I've published, X, Y, and Z. And I throughout the conversation, I'm realizing that they want these individuals are very high rank individuals from an institution that wants my knowledge. So it's presented in many forms. This is why I said this is why you need to know your worth. So it was presented as, oh, we've read your stuff. We saw the report that you did for Shirks. How would you word this question in a survey? So I'm answering it. Oh, but how would you and I said, what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want information, in which I worked hard to gain and learn, there needs to be I'm not doing this free, because you would pay a consultant the money that you would hire a consultant for this job, but
Right.
yet you're not. So this is how sublet it could be. It could be through dialogue, and it could be, and what's worse is that they will take someone of color to contact you,
Right.
because that person of color represents that institution. So you're not understanding it. You're thinking you're just having a conversation, and you realize you created a survey over conversation, because the person's writing it down, and they're using your information, that knowledge in which I've gained and paid for, and they use it to replicate and use that knowledge. And then I said, yeah, I'm not doing this unless you're paying me.
Property theft. Yeah.
Unless you're paying, but it's intellectual property.
Yes, of
The
course.
same way you would pay a consultant to review a labor, your collective agreement, or you would review a system in place, you would pay these people. You would go and pay.
Absolutely. I just want to ask the other panelists to jump in. I saw, Farzia, you had your yourself unmuted for a moment. Go ahead. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Now, I was just going to answer, I think, to your question, Janelle, you mentioned, like, why are women more prone to, scams online? I think it is an uncomfortable truth, but women, and particularly, I would say older women, or those in emotionally vulnerable situations, are often more targeted by online scams. And that is the truth. And I'll be honest that I've been there too. I'll share a personal story. A while ago, I remember I was rushing to book my driving test, and I've always been someone who was nervous behind the wheel. And after, failing a couple of times, I was emotional, frustrated, and even a little bit embarrassed that, why can I not pass my driving test? And my license was close to expiring. In my G1, and I had to get my G2. And in that state of stress, I remember I just went online and quickly booked my test. The website looked identical to the official drivetest.ca, like the same layout, the same colors. I mean, even when you had to go and pick the cities, everything was, kind of perfect. Only that it wasn't. It was a scam site that took my payment and personal information. Now, remember, I am somebody who comes from a tech background. I have done my bachelor's in computer science. I've studied, all the computer security courses. I work in cybersecurity. I teach about, cyber safety. So I should know better. But that moment taught me something even more important. And that is, when emotions are high, logic takes a backseat. It's not about what you know. It's about how you react in that, moment of, kind of stress, when you're feeling emotional. And scammers know this and they prey on it. So for women, the risk often stems from, these kind of emotionally manipulative scams like romance scams or family emergency scams, which play on, empathy and trust. Situational vulnerability, like, during periods of stress, grief, or transition, like moving, job loss, or even, like I said, driving test anxiety, right? And then the problem is that we also underreport because of shame or fear of being judged, especially when the scam is, personal. Like I think for me, I don't want to admit to my friends immediately that, hey, I have been scammed, because number one, I have to admit that I'm a bad driver and I was stressed. And number two, I work in cybersecurity. I should know better. But I think, and now I think I'm at a point where I'm like, no, you should share these stories, because, even if you're a so-called expert, you can fall, kind of, because you can become a victim as well, right? It doesn't matter what you know. And I think what we need to know is, that the more awareness we have, the better emotional support we have. And, the more I would say we try to build our own confidence, the better off we are. And it's not that we're just more gullible. It's just that we tend to be more, curious, empathetic, more trusting, and more community oriented. And scammers, they know about it, so they manipulate those strengths. And that's why, these kind of forums are so important, because we need to normalize talking about scams, even if we fall for them, and then build space where people feel safe reporting without judgment, and teach emotional resilience, with digital literacy. And I definitely feel like, cybersecurity is not just technical, it's deeply human. And that's the reason, the numbers for women look much higher than men.
Yeah, it is important to talk to that trusted person. You've given some really great tips there. I can tell you that I've had a situation where someone very close to me mentioned that they were being romanced online, and I listened, and then I said very gently, I think you're being taken advantage of. And they had sent money away, and the person was waiting for more money to be sent. And the way that it was, when they showed me the papers, or the copy of what they were asked to do, so they were representing themselves as one name, but then the money was going to another, right? And so I said, no, this is not good. And you're right, the emotion of that seeking of love, attention, all of those things were being heaped upon the person, and they were responding because that's what they were looking for, that's what they needed. So yeah, we do have to be careful. So when emotions are high, there was a thought that women can be not able to negotiate. I heard that as well, and I have to agree that we have to be able to. I think it goes hand in hand with having that confidence, knowing our worth, believing in ourselves, all that sort of thing, and being able to say, you know what, I'm going to. The other thing that came to mind is to say, because whenever I feel myself in that position, I think there is no rush to make this decision. If it's a good decision, it'll be good tomorrow. It'll be good next week. I have the time to talk to people, because sometimes it comes like, oh, this is a limited time offer, right? If you don't click on this right away, you're going to lose the opportunity. So I think some of those things we do fall prey to. And I think women are pleasers, perhaps. We want to be pleasing. We want to I think the other thing that you mentioned that was really important, I wanted to drive home again, was the idea of having a non-judgmental response as someone, if someone tells you this, we might tend to say, what? You fell for that? That kind of thing. But I think we have to hold back on that because it can happen to anyone. And I dare say I've been guilty of what Ola had suggested around not necessarily reading the fine print on a contract. So I'm seeing that there is an active live chat conversation going on. So people are responding really well to what you're saying. I wanted to turn the attention because I'm looking at the questions that I have remaining, and I would like to say if everyone can comment on some of the common red flags that we might see, and any steps that you think we need to take practically to protect ourselves from the information that we might see coming at us and the temptation really, and some of the things that we can do. So in the world of banking, Farzi, if you could comment on what are some of the tools to protect ourselves that might be available through the banking industry. If you could we could have an open conversation about that. Yeah.
I think we all have seen the shift to digital banking, right? And obviously that has made our lives very convenient. But it's also given, cyber criminals more opportunities to strike, especially through tactics like phishing and social engineering, right? And number one thing that I always tell people is that, just like you mentioned, Janelle, slow down before you click, right? Because scammers use urgency and familiarity to trick you into acting fast, whether it's a fake text from, the bank, a suspicious link, or a fraudulent call pretending to be tech support, right? When in doubt, go directly to your bank's website or app. Do not trust the link or number provided in the message. The second, I would say, an easy thing you can do is secure your accounts. That includes using multi-factor authentication, setting strong and unique passwords. Now, it's something so simple. Everyone knows that, we should be using unique and strong password. But I think if you may have been keeping up with the news, recently there was I think 19 billion passwords were leaked. And out of them, only 6 of them were actually 6%, sorry, 6% was unique. And the rest of, I would say, over 90% of the passwords people typically use, they're very common passwords. So practicing, like these kind of, I would say, cyber hygiene makes a huge difference, right? And I think if you're using any banking app, like enabling, transaction alerts, at TD, we offer TD alerts to notify customers of any unusual activity, right? And those real-time notifications can make a huge difference that, hey, this much money has been withdrawn from your account. So if that's you, great, nothing to be alarmed about. But if it's not you, then, you need to it means that you need to look into it. One of the ways I once caught, that, hey, I guess my credit card information has been stolen is, just by monitoring my account. It was not for a huge amount. It's just like maybe, $100 or something, which, I would typically just ignore, but I'm like, hey, I've never shopped at this store. And so I made a call to my bank. So even those small unauthorized charges can be a sign of something bigger. They want to see, is this person going to notice if I make a small purchase using their credit card, right? And they try to do with that. And so that's why I tell people, do not underestimate the value of, even like keeping your software, apps, and devices, all of that stuff, up to date. And I think lastly, I'll also share that, do not overshare on social media. It really might be harmless to post your birthday or your pet's name or your favorite vacation destination. But oftentimes, these are the ones this kind of information is used in password reset questions or scam attempts, right?
Yeah.
And cyber criminals, they don't just hack in, they log in. So, and our goal is not to make it easy for them. And from a banking perspective, obviously we have a huge, I would say, cybersecurity teams working day and night to ensure that, our customers are protected. We have great fraud detection systems in place, but a lot of the social engineering goes beyond just the systems, right? If a customer is willingly handing that money over to a cyber criminal, right? There isn't much, your banks can do. And I think there's this misconception that your bank will always be able to retrieve that money. And that may not always be the case. Your bank, number one, is never going to ask for sensitive information. So if you ever get a call from a bank asking for the sensitive information, hang up. Call back again, right? Using that proper number. So those are, I would just say, little things that we need to look out for.
Thank you so much, Farzia. That's so true. I had $1 here, $1 there, and I didn't even notice it. And then I had to report it because over a couple of months, it added up, and it was they were, I think, priming me for a larger charge. Yeah, but we did catch that in time. Thank you for that excellent advice. And any comments on common red flags and warning signs that people should be aware of by the other panelists, and practical steps that people can take to protect themselves?
Yeah, so can I jump in there? Because I know the question around women didn't come to me, but I'm just going to merge everything together. Um, I am a very believer in Philip Kotler and Gary Armstrong, who were at the forefront of marketing in those early days as a marketing student myself. And one of the this session is talking about consumer education, and I want to take it a bit a step further into consumers buying behaviors that also leads us to buying decisions. And when you look at women generally, and as we take it down to the data you talked about, that we are pretty much, we have a higher data around scams and all that. There are certain surveys too that has been passed around online, offline, that has questions around who is the primary decision maker in a typical buying situation. It still comes back to the women in the home having that, more of judgments, most likely the best judgments around buying decisions, making sure we get the best deals and all of that. So it comes back to buying behaviors. And here we have a typical device, phone, that often has what we call cookies, third-party cookies, tracking pixel, location tracking, personalization algorithms. Sometimes you see Google ads targeting us based on certain places we've been to, based on our social media profile, based on the kind of activities we do with our internet protocol number, which is the IP of your typical cellular data and all of that. We also have data brokers, right, that are selling some of the data based on your activities online. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about how naturally you go in on a space using your phone, and the next time, maybe another day, you see an organization sending you an advertisement around something that you've typed like 3-4 days ago. What does that tell us? We are in an era where our consumer buying decisions and all of that stems from something we did somewhere. And that's why you see the likes of Temu, right? Because we're trying to get deals. We're trying to, oh, I need this price is coming down. Temu will just tell you, you're gonna spin something. And this is really, really coming out. You see some people sending you a WhatsApp. I want to get a gift from Temu. Help me to get this gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you go on Temu, you want to help them to get the gift. Temu will tell you, download our app so that you too, you can spin. When you spin, you get 30 something. These are all the activities we're doing. Go and play a game. There are some games you want to play. So for me, I think we all need to do better by making sure we know what we are consenting to. When you go on a page and it's telling you consent, which cookies, do you want, confirm my choices? There are certain level. So please be sure that you are not accepting all. And if you're somewhere you don't want people to target your location, I'm coming to speak around women that are fleeing from places of violence. Sometimes you really need to, make sure you are very careful around how you're using your phone, because such information could be used by the person that you're literally running away from. So I'll just say that we should also embrace unlearning what we think we know or we have known in the past. And we seek to know where technology is driving us to. How can I protect myself from the same device that I use my money to purchase, right? So yeah, that's what I just want to add to it. And the women, because of economic imbalance, the fact that we're not earning much and all of that, we really want to find a way to start building wealth. And when these people knows what your characteristics looks like, they want to capitalize on that and then exploit your vulnerability.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. It's so true. We don't realize how vulnerable we are to those things. And especially when it's trying to help a friend or get a deal, it does sound very attractive. So, Karine, did you want to comment on,
Sure.
go ahead.
So I think some of the red flags I would say is the high pressure tactics that scammers use. They always try to display a sense of urgency, like it needs to be done immediately. If it's not done immediately, you risk, losing all access to your banking information. To me, that's a huge red flag. It doesn't give the person enough time to even rationalize the what's being presented to them. When the offer is too good to be true, I would take a step back and think about it, and that goes hand in hand with the urgency. There's no need to make an immediate decision that will have a long lasting impact, especially when it involves money.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you shouldn't feel pressure to make a decision that quick, that fast, because the deal is going to be only within two minutes. Otherwise, you will lose it. Also, it's unsolicited contacts. If someone you've never met reaches you unexpectedly, whether it's through a phone call, email, social media, be careful with that. You haven't built a relationship with that person. So how do they even know that you're in need of this funding, whether it's for your association, upcoming events? Like this is what I'm making reference to. If you're organizing something, it's kind of weird. That would be considered a red flag. Request for personal information, it's a huge red flag, which has already been discussed. No legitimate organization will ever ask you for sensitive details like your social insurance number, banking information, passwords without clear and verified reasons, or vague or inconsistent information. If a person or company struggles to explain their product or services clearly, that's a red flag. If there's inconsistency in their responses, it's also a red flag. This is a major warning sign, just to be cautious. And like I said earlier on, speak to other grassroots organizations, get information from them. Don't be ashamed if you were scammed. Like I've mentioned earlier, sharing information is caring. It's an old
Right.
proverb. Sharing is caring. There's no winner here. Like I always say, there's no individual success. It's a collective success in all achievements that we do.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that there was a Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. Could we share some more information about that and what they do? Mhm. How to get in touch with them? I don't know.
I can quickly look them up. It was mentioned through, like many panelists has mentioned it. It's basically a center that specializes in detecting frauds, and they are there for that. Farzia also mentioned it. I think
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
more.
It's
Okay, awesome.
I can add talk to. So there are, I think, Canada's central agency for collecting information on fraud and identity theft. I believe they're also jointly managed by the RCMP and the Ontario Provincial Police, if I'm not mistaken. And so they play a really important role in like educating the public about various types of fraud and how to recognize them. But they're also, I think, they collect and analyze data on some of these fraudulent activities to identify, like what are the trends and emerging threats. We have like our bank has partnered with them in the past to bring them in to do some sessions on, what kind of frauds are they kind of, is seeing, what are the trends, and just to kind of educating our colleagues on that. I think they also assist law enforcement by sharing information to support investigation and prevention efforts. And that's why, it's so important to report fraud. And I think this is one thing that I remember, I think when they were brought in by our bank to do a session, they said that, oftentimes a lot of these scams and fraud, they don't get reported. So if they don't get reported, there's no way for them to collect that information. But just by reporting, you're kind of like, doing, I would say, you're almost contributing to the wellness of your community by keeping others informed of like, what's happening. And like I said, that kind of has helped me open up and share my stories if I ever fallen a victim to something. I think like when I shared my story off, just signing up for this driving test using this kind of, website. I think the first thing I did after I realized this is fake website is I think I went ahead and reported them. And I saw that I can't remember the exact timeline, but I think within a few weeks or days, they were kind of, that website was shut down. Because, again, my whole goal was that, to prevent other people from, kind of doing that. And I think if you want to report fraud, they have a website, I think, available. I'm sure somebody, I think, in the comments has incled
Yes,
that.
I think that Ola has put that in.
Yes.
She's both the anti-fraud and then another one. Thank you for adding the Consumer Council of
Yes.
Canada.
Yes. So I think you can make kind of report on incidents on their website. I believe they also have a lot of good resources, but you can also call them. I don't remember the number, so you can, I think, look up their number online during the weekdays and, make a call and report any kind of fraudulent activity that you are either experiencing or of someone who has experienced it.
So I'm just looking through my notes to see if there were any final questions or comments, and something that was said. I think it was Farzia, that you mentioned about false messaging and detecting them and being asked to click on links and so on. So one of the things that I remember from the cybersecurity training I've had is around how to detect some of those falsehoods. And you mentioned a site that you visited where it looked the same. It had. So what are some of the cues that we can look for? Any of the panelists can answer this. What are some of the cues that we can look for to tell that something might not be correct? I heard already that urgency, the idea that you're going to make money quickly. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I heard the advice about slowing down and so on. But sometimes, things look. As a matter of fact, I received a text saying that I had a package to pick up at Canada Post, right? And then I've been receiving a lot of texts in the last month or so saying that we're charging this to your Apple Pay account, and it's like, I don't have Apple Pay, right? So I knew that. And then I used to get on my work phone messages saying your Amazon account will be charged this, and it's like, my Amazon is on my personal phone, not on my work phone. So this is definitely a scam. So there are certain things that told me, but I'm wondering if you would have other examples or other cues that people could look for to protect themselves.
I'll let, I would say, our other panelists, and they've already given some great tips, but I think I wanted to use the opportunity now to maybe talk about AI, right?
Okay.
Obviously, I think, typically the kind of messaging we would give with recognizing phishing emails, hey, if you notice a grammar mistake or a spelling mistake, obviously, right? And all those kind of things. But now the challenge, is this, that with AI in the picture now, a lot of these messages are highly personalized, right? Just like you mentioned, you may have made a purchase on Amazon, and the next thing you know, you're getting a message from Amazon saying that, hey, your delivery is arriving on this date. Can you just click here to ensure, and you're thinking, hey, I just made a purchase from Amazon, so this might be legitimate. And so no longer, like a lot of these scam messages or the phishing emails, they no longer have those grammar mistakes or that, incorrect spellings and things like that. And I think AI is playing that major role. And as much as I would say, AI is helping us, the defenders, on kind of expediting and things like that in terms of, detecting threats. At the same time, I would say the adversaries, the hackers, have an advantage too, because they can use to kind of do all these kind of cyber threats and attacks on a much broader scale. And I think with what we're now seeing with deepfakes, right, the AI generated audio and video content that mimics real people, it has now moved on from just experimental tech into everyday scams. We're now seeing like real world examples where cyber criminals are using deep fakes to impersonate CEOs, bank officials, and even family members to trick people into like wiring money or giving sensitive information. So I'll maybe give a few tips and kind of on how to spot a deep fake, because I feel like it's still a relatively new technology. The best way I would say to spot, for example, deep fakes would be looking for those kind of lip syncing mismatches. If you're kind of see that, if you're noticing any kind of unnatural blinking or facial expressions, it's likely that it's a deep fake. Inconsistent lighting or blurred edges, kind of background distortion, all those kind of things probably point to like a deep fake video. And like I said, we know of a very large organization just recently, they had a deepfake, impersonation scam where their CEO was impersonated, via a Teams meeting. So it's very real. It's happening. We have seen a number of cases, where people are literally, kind of sending messages, voice messages to their family members or videos saying, they're in trouble, please quickly send me, money. And that's how you all trick a lot of the grandparents as well. That's why there's a whole name given to, scams called the grandparent scams. And so that's why, I just wanted to use the opportunity to bring, kind of light on the AI scams and maybe how to spot those, kind of deepfakes. But I'll let, I would say, my other co-panelists, chime more on some of the other ways to detect these scams.
So I'm going to say that that is an excellent and probably an entire conversation that we have to have in another fireside chat. But we've come to the end of our time today. And I just wanted to say that because it's Mother's Day, we're not going to continue on with a discussion, with our discussion that sometimes we do with those who are willing to stay on, because we want people to get out there and enjoy themselves with their families today. And so I want to thank all of you who have joined us today, all of the mothers. We wish you blessings and tidings. And it is truly a great thing to be a mother, I can say, as a mother of 5 myself. And those who are not mothers, I know we mother in so many different ways. And that is our tradition as people of the African and Caribbean community. That is how we do. We take on the children in the community as our own. And so in that view, I would say that let us dedicate our thoughts about keeping ourselves safe, knowing our worth, speaking up, being trusted people, non-judgmental, looking out for one another with these scams as a loving enterprise and something that we will definitely pass on to our children. And as we opened with that first question on how to protect our children, let us keep in mind that they are interacting in the digital age in a way that we could not even imagine to do. And so we need to educate ourselves so that we can educate and protect them. So I just want to thank each of our panelists for your great advice today and for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see